Hello, welcome to the IWB tutorials. Firstly, my apologies for the attire, but it's very warm here today. I'm underneath a protective umbrella. Anyway, I'm going to show you what the IWB does in two parts, I think. First part will cover this lower area, which is the different types of bark and some of the colours, and then part two will look at the displacement effects and the wooden planks. Alright, so let's get cracking. This is what you're going to see when you download the master file. You'll have a tree here, and if we nip over to viewport render mode, we'll see a tree bark trunk. This is just, so you can muck around before you put it on any trees or any shapes. So this is regular bark, number 3, I believe. Yes, and to switch between the barks, it's just head over to the node group, and at the moment we've got number 3 mixed in, the top one. All of them have the mix at the top, so that's bark 2 mix, bark 6 mix, da-di-da-di-da. But it's a change, so if you mix bark 7, even though you've got bark 3 mixed, bark 7 being further down the chain will overwrite bark 3. You can mix them, it will mix the colours as well, I'll explain. So now I've got a 0.5 of 7 and a bit more of 0.5 of bark 3. So you can get a lot of different textures basically by mixing them. And the colours for every bark, we've got a wood grain, which is, I'll say that's the default. So you've got regular bark displacement and vector bark displacement. I'll get onto that in a second. And the regular bark displacement, the default is wood grain, and bark vector displacement, the default is just bark 1. As I say, we'll get there in a sec. So they all have, at least the regular bark, they have a colour ramp next to them, and that's specific to bark 2. So bark 2, you got your colour. Bark 3, you got 3 colours. Bark 4, you got 2 colours. So when you go to one of those barks, you'd use those colour ramps. And I'll just quickly show you how I would just double check what's going on. So simply by changing to horrifically garish colours: blue, green, pink. There we go. So you've seen where the colour changes are happening. So the green in this case at the moment is just around the edges. It's majority purple and blue. But you can change all of the filters. If I control Z, 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 because I don't want those horrible colours. These are the displacement filters, and these colours are intrinsically connected to the displacement filter. So if you change the displacement filter, the colour's going to follow it. So let's put the displacement up to 0.6, or this filter. So all of the barks have at least one displacement filter that you can muck around with. So as I say, there's no point in me going through all of them and showing you every single control, because a lot of this is about experimentation. But this one's got quite a few filters there, and it's literally just a case of, if you like a bark, mix it in, mess with the filters. If you don't like the original, the preset, see what happens. And that's what you do with the vector, the regular bark displacements. And up here in displacement control is this switch or slider: regular bark, vector bark. In order to use the vector bark, you want to slide that over, and I'll explain what the difference is. So regular bark displacement is using black and white to displace, which either pushes the geometry out or draws it in. Insets it, so it goes forwards and backwards. That's pretty much regular displacement. But vector displacement uses colours, the full spectrum, so it can go in, displace in any direction. And in this example here, it also overlaps other geometry, which you can't do with regular displacement. So you can see here they're pushing upwards, almost like a pine effect. In fact, I think a good one, maybe bark 4. And again, the same rules apply down the chain. If you mix up a lower, further down the chain one, it's going to overwrite everything else. So here you can see it's overlapping the geometry. It's also displacing in some random directions as well, but that you cannot do with regular bark, which regular displacement, which is why we have this separate section. So it's kind of a pine tree effect, I guess. And yeah, vector bark, again, same thing. All the controls are here. Fiddle about with them, mix them if you want. You've seen how to mix a couple of barks, and I'd always get into the habit of turning off what you don't use, because it will save any issues you may encounter later on. So just mix in the bark you want to use. I wouldn't mix in much else. And the colour for these guys, for the vector bark, is this one ramp here. So we got blue. So you can change the colour, and that will change the colour of all of the barks. All of the vector barks, sorry, are controlled here. And there's the filter scale for the colour. And one important note is if you have the moss mixed in, I'm going to look into this, but this is how it stands at the moment. If you mix in the moss, the displacement will remain the same, but what it will do is it will start using the colours of these, the regular. So if I turn off, you'll see what I mean. I'll turn off 3, and then the colour of the tree should slightly change. Have I got anything else mixed up? Am I on regular wood grain? Okay, hang on. Cover sporadic. Let me just check. You know what? It did it in the last time I tried to record this tutorial. It doesn't seem to be doing it quite so much now. But if you're changing colours in the vector colour ramp and it ain't doing nothing, it's likely because you've got the moss mixed in. And if you are mixing in the moss with the vector displacement, it just means pick one of these for the colours. So you could mix in bark 8. Won't change anything now because I haven't got the moss mixed in. But so there, now you're still using the colours and it hasn't made any change. But I believe if you mix in the moss, it's really hard to see. It might be because I've brutally displaced this tree. Let me try a different tree that doesn't have quite so much dramatic displacement. What's bark 5? What's that look like? Yeah, that might work. Let's have a look. Okay, yeah, here we go. Now we can see it perfectly. I'll explain the moss in a minute. So here now you can see, because we've mixed the moss in, which also comes with its own bump, by the way, when you add moss, and we'll get to that. So now you can see it's using these colours. So if I change that to, again, a garish one like blue, you see there's colours changing here. So we're using the vector displacement, but because we've got the moss mixed in, we're using the colours from over here. So if you wanted to use these colours, you'd mix in bark 8. If you wanted to try different colours or different patterns, just mix in something else. Like, I'm trying to find, I've set them all up to be brown, so it's hard to see. But you get the idea. If you're using moss, pick a formation over here, mix it in, and then you use these colours. Alright, that makes sense. Okay, cool. So colours, the colours, 9 minutes, good. Let's just unmix the moss, just to get over to colour effects. And the colour effects are all over here in colours effects, aptly named. So simply mix one in and you'll see what it does. If you make it much more visible, so we can actually see what it does. And let's take the saturation off. Okay, there we go. So now you can see we've got these things, and I'll get to object positioning in a second. Let's have a look. So with filter color 1, you've got these scale controls here. This vertical and horizontal is dependent on if you're using it. If if I just Shift A, add a plane, rotate it on the X 90, bring it down here, rotate it on the Z so we can see the thing, and then copy the materials. Okay, so it may do different things depending on what you're making. If I do vertical scale is at 1, let's put that at 10. It stretches. Oh, it's working on both at the same in the right way. So it's stretching it vertically. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it goes horizontal on a plane, but vertical on a tree. Let's just double check the other one then. Horizontal, 20. Yeah, I mean you can see it's doing exactly that here, but it seems to still be going vertical. So it's dependent on what geometry you're using those the filter on. So that's filter 1, and filter 2 can also be mixed in at the same time, but for this we'll just turn off filter 1, and there she blows. And this has the same horizontal and vertical scale. So and the reason I've got these horizontal vertical scales is if I wanted to make wooden planks, then I needed a control of the grain of the colour. There's also similar control of one of the bumps. But yeah, so that's that is the filter colours, and they're both set to screen. So they're ignoring the black. Black is transparent on both, and the only thing you can see is the lighter colours. I may add a third filter that's multiply, but for now this is what you got. Right, you got two. Yeah, and what you've got as well is now on this one, let's talk about object position quick. So object position mapping. If I'm going to Alt D this plane. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to right. Let me just reset the rotation of this. I think there's a quicker way to do it, but I don't know what it is right now. Okay. So we've got filter 2 mixed in. If we duplicate this plane, Alt DX, you can see it's exactly the same. It's got the same colours. If we slide this up to 1, it's changed. And it's changed because it's based on the position of the, you can see, there you go, it's doing, I'm not sure where the rest of the filters have gone. I'll have to look into that. It's likely because I've done this for, not for planes, but for trees. So what object position mapping means is that it will change depending on the position in the scene. So let's do this guy. Let's copy the tree, which is using what bark? Bark 5? Yeah, okay, so we've got bark 5, and it's already on position mapping. Let's turn it off to object mapping. And now if we Alt D X this particular tree, in fact it's probably going to be easier if we put that at bark 3 because it's a bit obvious, a bit more obvious, and we'll put it on object mixing bark 3. I need to unmix bark 5 because it ain't gonna change nothing. Bark 5, come on, damn. Okay, right, now these trees should look exactly the same. Wait a minute. Am I on I'm on vector bark. Okay, I forgot. I'm using the vector formations when I'm expecting these ones. Okay, so now you can see I've duplicated it and it is exactly the same. Let me just get the scale back down a little bit. 0.3. Wait, what is that? Overall scale 0.2. Okay, so you can see it's an exact copy of that tree. And let's do one more. Let me turn this on so I can see. Alt D X. So now we've got 3 of the exact same tree, basically. So if you were in a scene and you just wanted, oh, that's devastating, my umbrella's gone. Oh, we're nearly done, so just deal with the sunshine, it's very warm. Yeah, so if you'd made a tree or appended a tree, and then you duplicate that tree, Alt D, all over the place, because that's the quickest, lowest memory way of filling a scene with trees, is just duplicating an instance of the same tree. Well, if you did that here, obviously it'd look exactly the same. You can rotate it, but it looks the same, unless you put the object position mapping up to 1, and now they're different. See? There's no similarities. So again, it depends where in the scene this particular mesh is. Will show that part of the filter. So you can duplicate the same tree with all the same settings, but still have it look different, and still only use the same memory as only one tree. So these two trees aren't adding more memory because we've duplicated this one. Okay, that's object position mapping. That's the purpose. And then if we just, I can finish off this tutorial. Sorry if I can't tell if I'm really bright. Right, so yes, moss. This might be, we'll do it with here. So the moss, simple. Mix it in, and it's meant to be on one side of the tree. So if we pan around, you can see here there's no moss, and just because this is in darkness, you can see it hath no moss, but here it hath moss. And as I say, the moss comes with its own bump. So let me just where's my gadget thing gone? There, Pillock. No, how do I get back to? Blender's been doing some very, very strange things. I've now lost the tools. Where have they gone? Sorry about that. That was a wind up. It was this here. I don't remember doing that, but apparently I did that. And what I was here for was so I could add some more subdivisions to this tree. Okay, so back to the moss. So yeah, the moss has its own bump as well when you put it in, so it stands out a little bit more. And it's only on this side of the tree. And sorry, the sun is now on my thing. Right, and I can't see. Moss invert here. So if you wanted it on the other side, either wherever that is, either 0 or 1, so now it's swapped. So this is the side that's, I guess, in the sun, and this is the side that's not. So that's how the moss works. And this slider cover moss, sporadic moss, if you turn that on, it just covers the entire tree now with moss all over, but it's very bitty little moss. Bitty little moss, that's why I called it sporadic moss. And sorry, it's sporadic moss. So, and you've got the color filters for both sporadic and one-sided moss. Okay, that's part 1 done, pretty sure. Is there anything I haven't covered? Yeah, there's no need for UVs because it's all object based, unless you're painting, texture painting, in which case it will need to be unwrapped, but we'll get there in a minute. Okay, yeah, that's it so far. Cool, I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.